we put a string, right? We put a string, and then you're going to play with the braces. You're going to adjust to the wall. So Jan's up on the ladder and he's saying, I need 3/4 here, but I only have 1/2 inch. That means the wall's got to come inside a little bit. So normally you'll take a sledge and you'll tap it till it's nice. Once that's set, then you put that second top plate on. So before that second top plate goes on, you go around the whole perimeter of the building and you check to make sure everything's nice and in line, everything lines up perfectly. Okay, so the second top plate, ideally it's to lock in those corners, right? Perfect drawing up here. It's always the opposite. There's a joint on a joint, you're gonna overlap that joint. But before you put that second top plate on too, is you're gonna verify your whole building, your whole perimeter, make sure it's all nice and straight. Because once that top plate's on, it kind of locks it in place. You can straighten everything, drop in that second top plate. Cool? That's why we use a top plate. All the corners are locked in to the point where if you're doing an interior wall, you'll leave a space for it. You'll leave a space for it for your interior wall. You can do the same thing to lock in all your walls. I know there's a drawing somewhere. See how much fun we're gonna have? Here, there we go. So you see that? How's he lock in his wall on the inside? Same sort of thing. He's going to go right over it. This is a supporting wall. He's going to go right over it with that second top plate and lock it in like that. So it's not just nails holding your wall in place. It's that second top plate that's crisscrossed with the other one to lock it in. Cool?
Like a joint.
Yeah, makes it nice and strong. Down below, you're nailed into the rim joist, so it's not going to move. It's locked in on the floor. But up top, it's locked in with a chunk of lumber. It's not going to move at all. Lap joint. Yeah. Cool? Okay. Corners. You get a bit into assembly. Normally, when you build a wall, when you show up, normally when you show up to build a wall, you're going to have the young guy build the corner posts and build the headers.
What's the corner post?
Oh, we're going to get into that. All right? Good segue. Corner posts. All right? You're going to pre-make the corner posts. You pre-make your corner posts, you pre-make your jacks and your kings, right? You guys know what I'm talking about now? You're going to do that all on the side. Vincent, you go build headers. You're going to have a window schedule. From the window schedule, you know exactly how big all your headers have to be. So Vincent, I don't want to see you for an hour. Go build all the headers for all the windows and the doors. Miguel, you're on corner posts. You're going to go on the other side, away from Vincent because you don't get along. You're going to go over on the other side, and you're going to build all the corner posts. All right? And then Jan, you're going to build all the jacks and all the king studs. So he's going to figure out how high his jacks are going to be. Then you get into production work here, right? So that means, Jan, Michael, I need 30 jack posts at 77 3/4. What's Michael doing? Like that. What's Jan doing? Nailing it all together. Vincent, he's putting the headers together. Right? So all that's getting prepped. So when you finally get down on the floor and you're building all your walls, it's assembly. You're just putting pieces together, unless someone screws up. Cool? So because of that, we kind of look at how corner posts are made. I just did a really good drawing of it. In Quebec, you can build a corner post, with a whole lot of lumber if you want. There's a whole bunch of different methods. Again, why do we avoid putting wood into our corners? Insulation. Cost too. Every time you drop a stud, your house gets a little cheaper. But it's cost. It's three things. So if you lose a stud, you're saving a bit of money, you're saving a bit of manpower, because Jan doesn't have to shoot that stud in, and you're getting a little more insulation into your wall. Cool? So if we look at, there was a better picture of corners. They had all, because there's some really dumb corners in the world. Components and their function. stud length. I'm going to show you how to do a corner properly, but I want to show you kind of the dumb corners. I guess they don't have it. No. Okay. So, like my drawing before, here's your top plate, right? Your top plate, and here's the other wall. So the best way to build a corner is how you're going to do it down here and how you're going to do it in Quebec on the job is you're going to drop in a stud right here and you're going to drop in another stud right there. That's how you build a corner on a modern construction site. What's the bonuses of this?
It seals the.
Who was making corners? You were Heathers? You run corners? Same height as your studs? Jan's going to pre-build all these. He's going to look at how many corners we need in the building and he's going to pre-make them all. So when we're assembling our wall, we can drop it in place. 2 pieces of wood. The bonus of using a corner like this is you have nailing for your furring on the inside. Okay? You got to go around, you got to fur this whole building. Right? You have nailing for furring on your inside. The other sweet, sweet bonus is what?
Insulation.
You can get insulation in there. Alright, so you've got nailing for your sheathing on the outside, obviously. When you pulled your 16s, you pull it from the corner, right? You gotta like exactly like you did with the flooring. You gotta think like the plywood. Where you're putting your nail, where's your plywood starting? Because you want to end up mi-joint over here, right? Same thing over here, you're gonna pull your measurement from here so you end up on mi-joint there, whether you're going 4 feet or 8 feet. When you build your corner post or poteau première, build like that, pre-built, you put it in place, you got your nailing on the inside, you've got your R value, you lose a bit, but it's not too much, and you're all ready to go. So each one of these corners, if we're doing our basic bungalow, you can have about 4 corners to do. Jan will sit there and pre-make all those corners. So when you finally get down to building that wall, you have all your pieces ready to go, it's pretty much assembly. Cool? You guys are drifting on me a bit, eh?
Break.
It's almost break.
I know.
Okay, assembly. How do we build a wall, guys?
Floor.
How do we trace a wall? Anybody know, Michael?
Trace.
Chalk lines on the ground and then you go from there, I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
On the floor you chase around
You always have to like make the chalk line. You trace it on the ground, on the floor. You chalk line on the sheet. Chalk line. I did it yesterday. It's so.
I did it yesterday.
Back to our bungalow. Okay, we're framing this wall.
Make sure it's straight.
Right? So what are you gonna do?
Chalk outline to make sure the wall will be straight on the ceiling.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're building a 2x4 wall. We're gonna do it like we build here. Normally it's a 2x6. We'll build a 2x4 wall. Right? So what are you gonna do? You need to snap a line. What do you snap a line at?
5.5. You take the piece of wood and you measure and just chalk the line for what?
5.5 or 3.5. Let's say 3.5. We'll do a 2x4 wall. You're gonna snap a line at 3.5.
Oh yeah.
Okay?
You did it yesterday.
Then you're gonna take two 2x4s. Try and do your nicest lumber and your longest lumber for your plates. Same when you're doing that second top plate. Normally you order like 16 footers, anything long like that. Same for your fascia and roofs. You take the nicest pieces and the longest pieces. It's a pain in the ass to put a joint up there, so you want to use at least 16 footers. So you're going to snap a line at 3.5. Then you're going to take two 2x4s for your 2 plates. And you're going to sit them down on edge like that. You're going to have one sitting like that. And you're going to have the other one sitting like that. And you're going to tack it down onto the floor. Okay, the idea is that when you raise your wall, that spacing you created, it came off let's say I'm raising my wall. This is my stud on the side. So when you raise it, there's your 3.5. If you put plywood on it, your plywood's going to run past over the top like that, and it's going to fold over and cover that rim joist. So because of that, we'll come back 3.5, or we'll come back 5.5 if we have a 2x6. You're going to lay your 2 plates down like that. You're going to trace them together. You're going to trace all your studs, all your openings, and then when you're ready to build the wall, you leave this one on the ground, you leave this one tacked down, you take your top plate, and you bring it up here. And then you start throwing all your studs and all your jack posts, all your corner posts, everything in. So when you're ready to raise your wall, you lift your wall, your stud's going to go like that, and it's going to sit right on that line with your plywood coming down. It's like a skirt. Like a skirt that's going to cover the next joist. So what that does when you nail that all in is it keeps your building together. It's connecting all the dots here, you know? And that means with your Tyvek and your sheathing, it goes right past that rim joist. So when you put your exterior finishing on, your water's going to do what? It's going to drain down, and it's going to drain. It's not going to sneak in and go into those rim joists. When you have your wall up like that, then you're good to go. Like I said, you're going to put your 2 pieces down, and that's where you're doing your homework. You have your 2 pieces of wood on the floor, then you pull out your tape, and that's when you start tracing all your 16s, and you trace all your centers. On a job, normally you're going to trace your centers first. You're going to have your 2 plates sitting on the ground, and you're going to look at your plan. From your plan, what are the centers marked from? From what point do you hook your tape when you have to measure centers? Come on, guys.
From the
Corner.
corner, from the edge, you know?
Yeah.
What corner?
No, you see left.
The sign.
The
I'm
side.
going to say left. Come on, guys. Think about planning the view. Where do you get your measurements for all your openings?
Oh, you remember from the,
That's
you
good.
have to get it from the,
Well, remember, think about flooring.
The floor,
When Luke gave you a stairwell opening in Cage d'Escalier, right?
From the side, no?
yeah, no, before, you have to go on.
Well, it depends. It depends on your foundation.
From the foundation wall, depends where.
Foundation wall. Thank you, Jesse. Okay. So if I have an opening that's right here, and on my plan it says 32 feet to the center of my window from my foundation, I'm going to hook my tape on my plate, my 2 plates that I have lying there, and I'm going to mark 4 feet center. Everything's given in centers, right? If my window or opening is 4 feet, let's say it's 3 feet, okay, or let's say it's 2 feet, and go 4 foot center, and then from there I'm going to go 2 feet, 2 feet. Everything we build in construction is always the center. Your interior divisions and your exterior divisions is given to you in the centers from the corner of the foundation. So if this window, if I looked at a plan on how to build this wall, and that was my foundation corner, when I'm framing this wall on the floor, I'm going to hook my tape over there, and I'm going to come and I'm going to mark on my 2 plates the center of the window. And then from my center, I'm going to divide my opening in 2, and I'm going to measure, and I'm going to measure, and that's my opening. Cool? Now, if you have a brick check.
What?
A brick check. Do you remember doing that in flooring?
No.
Because sometimes we have something else that's going on the foundation. It makes it a pain in the butt. I'm sure you guys did this. You're gonna have your foundation coming up, right? And then you're gonna have your floor joists, your rim joists, your floor joist, and then your wall, right? And your wall's coming up like that. This is usually about 4 inches. You know what it's for? Brick. Could be, sometimes they'll put 2 inches of rigid insulation on the wall. Because sometimes you can build with the 2x4, but you still need to be R20, so you'll compensate with that with some rigid insulation. There is sheathings, like instead of plywood, you'll put some rigid insulation. It depends. It's always going to show you on the plan how far of a space you need to leave on the foundation. Normally in the front part of a house, you're going to pour a 10-inch foundation because of the brick. The back sides, usually you'll put vinyl siding, something a little cheaper, but the front facade usually gets brick. So because of that, you're going to have a check on the foundation, let's say 4 inches. But the problem is, like you guys learned in flooring, all your measurements come from here. When you look at a building, it's always from the corner of the foundation that you have your measurements. So when you look at the plan, you're going to see a line like that, right? And it's going to say the center of the window, and it's going to have a measurement, and that's your window opening or your door opening. Because of that, when you did flooring, which I'm sure you dealt with, you have to add. You have to say, okay, well, I've got 4 inches of foundation, and I'm going 4 feet. You have to let it go past, right? You guys remember doing all that? It's going to be the same thing with walls. So if you're building a wall that has a check in the foundation, you've got a little like that, you pretty much got to hold your tape at 4 inches to compensate for that to get your center. Same thing you did in flooring. Small little adjustment that you have to do. So your measurements for all your openings, always the corner of the foundation. Just think back to the plan reading, and you have that bird's eye view of the building. All your measurements start from that corner. All right. So when you look at that front part of the house, doors, windows, all that stuff, it's always from that corner. All right. So then you're going to come along and you're going to trace your 2 plates. So if I have that 4-inch check, I'm going to hold my tape on 4, and my center, let's say 16. I'm going to mark my 16. I've got a 2-foot opening for a small little bathroom window. I'm going to mark 1 foot, and I'm going to mark another foot, and there is where my jacks are going to go, and there is where my king's going to go. Cool? And then you add your 16 later on, and that's how you trace your wall. So you trace them both together at the same time. You're going to pull out your 2-foot square, again, the 2-foot square. The beauty of the 2-foot square is that the small part of that is 1.5 inches. So as you trace the 2 plates together, you can mark both sides of the line. I don't know if you guys did that in roofs or if you did that in flooring. Did you use the 2-foot square in flooring?
No.
No? Not at all?
No,
I'm a big believer in the 2-foot square.
Square out the opening.
Square out the opening. Anyway, that's what you're going to trace. You're going to drop all that down, and that's how you trace the wall. Once you're done tracing it, you're going to have a piece of wood that, I'm going to show you. Their drawings are pretty complicated, but
Put it on the side.
there. See, look. Guys, so you're going to your RO width is your rough opening, okay? So you're going to trace it like that. There's his center. See, he marks his center. And then he's marking his jacks and his kings. He's got his jacks and his kings. And then he's throwing in all his 16s. You see again, what's the 15.25 for? No. Why is the first measurement at 15.25?
Starting from the edge.
Yeah. So how come he's marking 15.25?
Gonna give 3/4 compensation. I know what you mean.
Why is he at 15.25? What's the golden rule that we use?
Mark 15.25, and then after you.
Because we go from the edge of the front.
Maybe for
Come on, Miguel. Come on.
No, from the edge
plywood.
No, it's 15.
of the walls, the foundation walls.
No. 16-inch on center. Why is our first mark at 15.25?
Oh.
Because you're moving all your same thing you did in flooring.
Yeah.
You're moving everything over, right? So if you go with a piece of plywood, you're going to go like that. You want to be mi-joint. So when we talk about 16-inch on center, your first measurement, you're moving everything over 16 inches. Because if we go 16 exactly, it's going to divide right to there, right? So we want to move all our studs over 3/4 inch, half the size of your material. So you put your first stud in here. Your first measurement is 15.25 to the edge of that piece. Your 16-inch is center to that piece. So when they say 16-inch on center, 24-inch on center, you're taking all your joists, all your studs, and you're moving them over a little bit. If not, then this stud would have been flush with that 16-inch mark. So because of that, you got to think everything we build here is small, but think of that 50-foot wall. You're going to come along. I'm going to come along. You're going to say this is my wall. Come along here. there I've got my 16" on center, but I'm gonna mark 15 1/4 and move all my studs over. So on my 2 plates, I'm gonna bang a nail in right there. I'm gonna hook it on there, and I'm gonna mark with an X all along there. So when we come to put the plywood down, your plywood's gonna be flush here. Your 4-foot mark is gonna end up mi-joint on that stud, so you've got nailing for both sides. So when you build a floor, when you build a wall, anything that's 24 or 16" on center with an 1.5" stock, you're gonna move them all over 3/4, so you're landing mi-joint. Once you've done that 15 1/4, then you're just marking 16s all along, but you can go row after row after row after row of plywood, and they all have nailing all the way along. It's always gonna end up mi-joint.
So you can't just hook your tape at the end and just put it 16 on there in the first one because it won't line up, right?
Some guys do that. You can do that too. You can just sit there and go and just mark the center. And then when you put your stud on, you know to put the stud center.
What I don't
You know?
understand is where do you have to start?
With your first
Hook
one.
your tape.
Your first one, this is your corner of your foundation. This is the corner of your wall. You're going to come over. If you put the first mark on 16 and you put an X over there and you drop your plate in, what's going to happen with a 4-foot piece of plywood?
Oh, it makes sense.
It just has to be in the center of the 16.
Just has to be in the center. So there's some guys that'll just mark the centers. They'll just have one mark, and then you pretty much just eyeball it where you're going to put that stud, and that's about center. So all you want is just think again like the piece of plywood. When I come and check your work, if I'm checking the stuff you've done in flooring, and I hook my tape and I walk down 8 feet, and at 8 feet, I don't see 3/4 on each side of my measurement. Something's screwed up. Like when you guys are doing your trusses, it was 24. I come along and check. It never worked out because we were building you were both starting on different ends. But at least for the first few, I'd be like, okay, boom, boom, boom. You got all your centers. You're fine. All I'm looking for is nailing on both sides. Okay? Again, because wood's expensive, and we don't want to add a stud every 4 foot just because we don't know how to move our studs over 3/4. So again, we don't want thermal bridging, right? Back to the wood. You don't want to add a stud. You're going to move them all over, so you end up mi-joint. You end up mid-wood, mid-joint all the way along. All right, that's the reason we do that small adjustment. On a wall, it's important and it's easier for me just to take my first measurement, move it over 3/4, plant my nail at 15 1/4, hook it by Ludwig, and just mark all my 16s with one long metal tape, and then I know I'm not wrong. I know I'm not wrong. So if I hook my tape on the corner of the table, all my plywood lands up on the stud. And that's how you build a wall. And then you're all lined up.
But then when you get to the last one,
Yeah.
you always come in, you don't count
Well, the last one, you see where it ends up.
Yeah.
But sometimes, especially in flooring, you don't want to put a floor joist really close because then you can't get in there and insulate. So you're almost better off just leaving it out and going maybe 17 inches, or you move it over so you can get in there. But you know what I mean? You don't want to, it is more flooring, but you don't want to lock in that foundation. You don't want to have your foundation like this, and then your rim joist, and then your, what am I doing? Yeah, there's your rim joist, and then you're gonna drop another one in here like that. What's gonna happen here later on?
You can't
get in there and insulate. So you're almost better off just moving it over, you know, because this is obviously less than 16. You're down to 12 inches or whatever. Even if you have to go 17 or 18, at least you can get in there and spray some urethane or put some bats in or something. Whereas if you close that off like that, that's the end of it. Or you pull a wool on the job. Very often you'll get into situations like that where you want to, Jesse, you want to get in and insulate that before you close the floor. So you'd go around before you put the plywood on, and you can stuff some bats in there. But ideally, you're better off moving it over because you always need to get in there. If there's a plumber that has to put a tap or a water spigot or something like that, somebody's always got to get in there. To close that off is not ideal. So you kind of move that last one over. You won't have to deal with that with studs. Studs, you're going to have the corner post, and you're going to have your last stud, and it should all line up. So
What if you start 16 on center from the other side?
that's fine. Yeah, that's the trickier thing is like when I'm grading flooring, I say which side did you start from? Because it doesn't really matter as long as it lines up on one side. Maybe it's going to be a little cheaper on one side than the other, but you're cutting a piece of plywood at the end, whatever you do. You know, not necessarily we don't design our building so it lands right on all these nice sheets of plywood. You know, So long as you pull it from one end or the other, as long as both of you know which one, you know, if you start tracing from that end, I'm tracing from that end, well, it's not gonna work out too well, but your window openings, it's fine, because it's gonna be shown probably from both corners. You're gonna measure over your center. Cool? So we'll take a little break, and then when we come back, get to listen to me some more. All right? Ton mur est pas divisé en 16 ou en 4 pieds ou...
No, I'm just trying to stop you from wasting your
Ouais, c'est ça, j'ai un peu, ouais, c'est ça. C'est 2, 3, c'est pas grave, c'est ça. C'est jamais égal. Ça va être jamais 14 et demi.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That actually,
But this guy has so much money.
how did that? You hit this
What, like 100 something million?
the side of the skull. I hit here. Frontal cortex.
What's this? C'est bien que du aluminum, c'est ça.